Hello everyone. So in the next iteration of our series from question to concept, we are back with another theme. I am Abhishiekh Saxena. When it comes to the mains examination is largely about two things. One, that is the concept, and other, that is the articulation or expression. Hence, mastering the concept is a prerequisite, because you really cannot express something unless you know about it. So in our series from question to concept, approach to mains, we look at certain high value themes. So today, as part of the public administration optional, I am going to take up the theme of participative management through the scholar Douglas McGregor. You all know that Douglas McGregor is known for his theory X and theory Y. But how does it reflect in the examination? Participative management continues to be a topic which is touched by the UPSC Mains examination for public administration optional year on year. Sometimes McGregor, sometimes some other thinkers. But McGregor represents a test case for us today to actually analyze on what themes the questions are formed, and more importantly, how they are formed. So it is not a conventional approach that we take as part of this session where we'll be discussing a concept and then looking at the question. Rather, we'll be looking at reverse engineering certain PYQs and see how a particular question is made and on what concepts is it based. So let us look at the question under consideration. If you see, this question I have taken from 2024 mains examination, and every question that you will encounter in the mains examination will boil down to a concept or a set of concepts. I call it the demarcation of territory. And this is the fundamental aspect that can we deduce a particular question to its granular concept or set of concepts it is touching upon. It basically narrows down the area that we need to operate in to answer that question. And once this demarcation happens, we explore the dimension. So let us look at the question here. McGregor's theory X and theory Y provide insights into human motivation at a workplace differently, examine in detail. And this was a 20 marker, right? So it is all about theory X and Y and relating it to motivation at a workplace. That means at an organizational level. So the concepts here include X and Y theory and link them with the motivation, right? And we need to examine in detail. That means our expression, our articulation should revolve around the reasoning, how and why, right? So let us at a very elementary level first look at the underlying concept or set of concepts. Now, if you look at the McGregor's model comes with two theories, theory X and theory Y. As part of the theory X, it represents an authoritarian idea, whereas this is a far more democratic and liberal idea. So here the management is on top and the workers or staff is at the bottom. And if you see, this does not provide a lot of motivation. It is a repressive style. It is a top-down style, tight, strict, right? And hence produces very limited motivational level. It is characterized by a depressing culture. Whereas if you look at theory Y, it is far more democratic, far more liberal, and a continuous improvement happens through worker participation. So in this particular context, if you see, there are more chances of motivation to remain high. And that is the crux of the McGregor's theory. Further, if you will see, within this framework, it is the theory X which generates certain feelings, because motivation is all about a feeling. So theory X generates dislike for work. There is a coerced character associated to it, right? It is a directive style that I direct, you follow, right? And the main motivating factor remains just the money or the monetary aspect, because the work conditions are not very conducive, right? And therefore there is lack of creativity. Whereas on the Y theory, right, workers take interest, and that is a direct product of better motivation. Workers are self-driven towards their goals, and to that end, if you see, they accept responsibility and carry out the task. It is not coercive conditions. So these two models are there, but we have to sort of work along with this model on the reasoning part. So if you look at the participative model, it is the theory Y. It is the theory Y, where work comes naturally and there is a certain commitment to objectives. Okay. Apart from this, if you see, with regards to McGregor, we will have to link this aspect with motivation, and a clarity about what do we mean by motivation is needed here, right? I'm not getting into the ideas that there was a classical school, then human relations, then the behavioral participative approach actually came about. But the arrival of McGregor demonstrates this model through certain assumptions. The assumption is that there is an organizational scenario and then there is a lack of motivation and a natural dislike for work, and therefore in X kind of scenarios there is a greater need for supervision. That translates into a directive style of organizational affairs, and it is just the monetary needs which motivate the people. So you have a strong hierarchy, strict adherence, just the compliance orientation, not going beyond that. And employees have limited autonomy. Whereas a scenario with Y, theory Y, assumes that it is a participative, development oriented idea, where the assumption is that the work comes naturally, where the people can exercise self-direction and can be self-driven, and the commitment towards work is linked to rewards, both monetary as well as non-monetary rewards, and hence it brings about innovation, creativity, right? Creates an enabling environment, decentralized levels of decision making. Thereby, the motivation contributing to Y and Y contributing towards the motivation, right? So, the leadership style in X would be directive, coercive, whereas in Y would be collaborative, participative, right? Where the employee engagement will be minimum in X for decision making. In Y, it would be maximum, it would be active involvement. X would be top down, Y would be bottom up, The kind of organizational culture in X would be compliance oriented, whereas in Y would be innovation oriented. Of course, there are criticisms. Criticisms include that this is an oversimplified idea. At the same time, we cannot say that X is good or Y is good. At times, for certain tasks, right, you need X. Security, enforcement, policing. Okay, so it cannot be either or situation. There is a context to it. There is a contextual dependency. At the same time, this cannot be said to be neutral. This is a very mechanical understanding across cultures, right? It can differ. And then there was this theory Z, which was given by Auchi, who blends the X and Y elements to bring out a more realistic perspective when it comes to the participatory management and the theories X and theory Y of McGregor. Now, if you look at the question itself, what shall constitute the answer? If you look at here as part of the question, motivation was linked to theory X and Y in an organization, right? And we had to examine it in detail. So motivation as a concept is what? It's a drive. It's a drive or external stimulus that initiates or bring about a human behavior to work for certain goal. So it's a stimulus. A suffocated, coercive, directive, top down, where worker initiative is not considered, where worker views are not considered, it would be a compliance oriented thing because the stimulus is negative. Whereas on the contrary, the exact opposite, where it is more collaborative, more decentralized, more bottom up, more innovative, more creative. The rewards are beyond money as well, money plus something else, right? So it will be a positive motivation, right? It will be a positive motivation, and to that end we will have to see this theory X and theory Y, because motivation is crucial to working of functionaries, the administration. So how are we supposed to construct this answer? First, we'll lay in the context that organization is marked by a dynamic setting, where motivation plays a key role in how the administrative activities will be carried out. Now, please pay attention. There is the caution. Motivation is an appendage. Motivation is not the main point of the question. The main idea or the main thrust of the question is on theory X and Y. So, along with motivation, we'll have to lay in context the theory X and Y, that in this slide, McGregor's theory X and Y represents two models on how motivation gets manifested in an organizational setting. Then, of course, as content, we'll have to use the characteristics of theory X and Y and their comparison, something that I did just now. Along with the comparison, we will have to make analysis. Analysis vis-a-vis the participative management and the concept of motivation. So these are the things that are needed, and we'll have to balance it out with all the risks, limitations that they might have. So after laying the basic postulates, I told you the assumptions and the model of theory X and theory Y and the comparative dimension along with the limitations, and therefore how the motivation goes up, why it goes up, because people feel engaged, empowered, whereas on the contrary in X, people do not feel motivated or empowered. So this is how we will have to link the elements. Let us say we'll have to talk about X and Y and motivation and the impact. So if it is coercive, right, the motivation will go down. It will lead to just the compliance orientation. There won't be a self-driven attitude that will come about, right? Similarly in Y, the democratic, so people will feel empowered. This is the reason, the why factor, how factor, and it will lead to a positive motivation. So this is how we'll have to contextualize. It would be great if you can give certain examples to cement your point. So this is how we are going to construct the answer. Now let us have a look at some of the questions, and these are questions for your reflection. These are not PYQs. That how theory X and Y can be related to other aspects and how it can be asked through multiple angles and lenses. McGregor's theory Y provides the psychological foundation for participative management. Examine the relevance of this statement in the context of contemporary administrative systems. So you will have to apply that how it laid the basics of a decentralized, democratic, empowered, bottom-up, creative, innovative, self-driven system, right? The next one is a bit theoretical. Compare and contrast theory X and Y in terms of their assumptions about human behavior, like people dislike work for X and people want to work for Y, okay, and their implications for organizational efficiency. Do you think that the Indian bureaucracy is more aligned with theory X or Y? So it is again, the second half of the question is application orientation. Next, Discuss the scope and limitations of participative management in public organizations. How can McGregor's ideas contribute to creating a motivated and responsive civil service? Again, we will have to advocate for theory Y, right? Or you can drop in other dimensions with regards to Auchi, theory Z, right? Next is, participative management is not merely a technique but a philosophy. Critically analyze the statement with suitable examples from Indian administration. So we are looking at the concept of participative management, wherein McGregor will be used as a feeder. Last, to what extent do McGregor's theory Y and participative management align with the human relations school of thought? So again, an implication. The question that we took up was related to motivation as a concept. Here it is linking with the human relations school. So we can say that it is an extension, it is an improvement, right? Discuss their influence in evolution of organizational behavior theories in general. The evolution from classical to modern to participative to contemporary ones. So I hope that this journey from question to concept has helped you understand that how a particular concept gets manifested in the form of a question and why a question pitches on certain dimensions. We'll see you in next video identifying some more critical themes for the mains examination for public administration. Thank you.